everything on that prayer, it somewhat feels like a meditation. And psychology will talk about the benefits of meditating and being able to focus your mind and being able to pull away from the world for a minute and, be more introspective or spiritual. So it would even have some of the benefits of that also, and you're doing that 5 times a day.
I'd like to address this from the Islamic perspective of mental health. When we talk about mental health, we're talking about the thought process that takes place inside the brain. I don't know, I think Imam dealt with it earlier, when he's talking about our thoughts are made up of words, right? We have to think with words. And a lot of times when we have mental health issues, it's because of the words and the concepts that have been fed into our brain, like with this rap music and things like that, cause mental health issues. So, I remember the lecture that some guy did that was, how do you find a mind that has been lost? Right? He said, you go back to when you first got that mind. Right? The first mind that was given to man, the words that was given to man, was the word of Allah, was his words. When he said, then he taught Adam, right? The knowledge, the names of all things. So for us as Muslims, to regain or to maintain our mental health, we have to go to the book of Allah. That's what keeps us sane and stable, the book of Allah. And the more we move away from that into these concepts and these things that the society is giving, the more unstable and mentally unbalanced we become. And it was designed to do that. Shaitan, that was his whole plan.
And a lot of the strategies that you'll have in psychology on ways to cope with stress and to cope with issues and mental disorders actually look very similar to what we're already doing in Islam. So we already have the book there, we already know what to do. We might not realize all the benefits we get from it until we start looking at secular knowledge to say, well, what are they trying to replicate that we're already doing, like the meditating and the praying, What is it that if we just followed it and really did it, not just making the postures, not just doing whatever, but you're internalizing it and doing it as it should be done. It's a huge protector. And yeah, you're gonna have bumps and you know the warning signs to look for. You also have to plan on what to do when you have the warning signs. Who do you go to? What do you do? It's there. We have the ultimate self-help book, but we reach to other books to try to learn how to do what we already know. That's all. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you. Takbir. Takbir. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I just want to say thank you for inviting me to this function. And thank you even more for this topic. Because to address your question, that was how I wanted to start the conversation. Number one, this country, the society at large, has a problem with mental health. If I said to you that I have a headache, you don't have a problem with that. But if I told you that I'm hearing voices, then you have a problem with me. And that is not the way of Islam. That is not the way of health providers. Illness is illness. A mental illness is just as real as a physical illness. So I wanted to go back to your question.
Okay.
Then how do you define what a mental illness is? The answer is it's a cultural definition. Each culture will tell you something different. In certain cultures, one person's way of thinking and speaking and behaving is appropriate. But you take that person out of that context and you put them somewhere else, and that can be a totally different view. It will be labeled differently. So we take it today from an Islamic concept. And you really have to step back and we have to look at ourselves. What is our mental illness? And it's kind of been alluded to earlier, and I want to get back to that. of all, when you talk about mental health and or mental illness, mental disorder, what organ are we referring to? The brain, right? That is the controller of this physical being that we have. If the brain is not functioning appropriately, then we say that the person has a mental disorder. I'm going to illustrate to you how important the brain is. Because we hear it all the time, man is mine. So I had a patient, and the patient was pregnant. There was an ultrasound, and the ultrasound showed that the fetus did not have a brain. So that diagnosis is called anencephaly. So what do we have to tell that patient? This baby is not going to live long outside of the womb. You cannot survive if you do not have a brain. If your brain does not function, if it's not working, you are not alive. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm talking literal, but I'm also speaking to you in a figurative language, in a spiritual way. It's not just about, I don't have ADHD, I don't have bipolar. It's about how you're living that life. What are those thoughts making you do on a day-to-day basis, on a minute-to-minute basis, on an hour-to-hour basis? What are you thinking about? Who are you thinking about? And what are you doing related to those thoughts? So the sister asked a question in regards to prevention. That was another topic that I wanted to address in regards to mental health. Because as a physician, as a clinician, I always think about how do I prevent disease? Not just for myself, not just for my immediate community, but for the extended community. How do we prevent these illnesses? So if I say that it's not just ADHD, it's not just autism, it's not just bipolar, but it's somebody who cannot function in society, whatever that label is. So if I myself know, and I believe 120% that alcohol, liquor is haram, but I'm addicted to it, then I have a mental disorder. If I believe that I'm supposed to pray 5 times a day and have a communication with my Lord to keep me sane, and I do not do it, I have a mental illness. It's just that simple. If I know what I'm supposed to feed my body to keep these cells healthy, and I do not obey that, but I obey the lust and the desires in my mind, and not obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the rules of the Quran, then I have a mental disorder. So how do we prevent it? The brother addressed it earlier, but I'm going to repeat that. Before the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Arabs were living in an era that was called what? Jahiliyyah. What does that mean? Ignorance. They were living around the Kaaba. The house that was built by Prophet Ibrahim, 2 prophets, right? And his son, Ismail. How is it that you were given a message and then you become people of disbelief? People that practice worshiping idols. It is that mental health or lack thereof. We have to recognize the same things. Have we reverted back to Jahiliyyah after not only did the Prophet ﷺ come with the message, it is the final message. That's it. Other people had excuses. They said, oh, well, somebody else is supposed to come after this prophet. Somebody else is supposed to come after this one. Oh, well, our prophet hasn't come back yet. Do we have that excuse? No, we don't. We have the answer. So it is up to us to live according to the Quran and the Sunnah for better health. That's the prevention. That is the prevention. You recognize that, number one, Allah is Allah. Allahu Ahad. La ilaha illallah. Then you practice that over and over and over and over and over again until that becomes the routine message, the continuous message in your mind, that it not only is that what is in here, because those neurons and synapses that she spoke about earlier, those are what gets sent to the fingers, to the mouth, to the tongue. That becomes the words that you speak. It becomes the steps that you make. And people will look at you, I'm going back again to that topic earlier, as the leader. So what you do shows what you believe. And it is there to help prevent and protect your mind. And so you have to do the same with your children. You give them those same things. So again, she asked, what were the signs? What are the symptoms? What are the signs? We keep talking about these things esoterically. Let's be real about this. The Prophet ﷺ, he lived in a place of Jahiliyyah. They worshiped more than one God. That was the illness that they have. What is the illness that we have? Are we mushriks too? This is a rhetorical question. Nobody has to answer. This is the question that you ask for yourself. How do I fix the problem that I have mentally? The problems that I have mentally? We have to take those 360 idols out of the Kaaba that is up here. So, signs. What I think about all the time is not appropriate. So we live in a society, and the society has good and the society has bad. So we can take and we can extract and we can use what is good, but we have to be able to distinguish what's right and what's wrong, and we leave the wrong. We don't allow it for ourselves. We don't allow it for our families. We don't allow it for our communities. You are the people produced for mankind who forbid what is right, who encourage enjoying what is right and forbid what is wrong. That's our job. That's what we were chosen to do. So there is no guarantee that each and every one of us is going to have clear mental health with no disease from birth to death. I'm going to go back over prevention again. Practical things. Live in the deen, you eat right, and you exercise. Most of the organs in our body have some form of muscle tissue. The brain is a wonderful organ. In and of itself, it really doesn't have any muscular tissue. So then, why do I need to exercise for brain health? Because it's the tissues that bring the nutrients to the brain that have the muscles. So you have to work on the muscles, the physical part of this worship, and also on the mental, the spiritual aspect of the worship. Mothers have to eat well for their newborns. That's preventative health. What we do at birth as Muslims, the sunnah is to call the adhan in the ear. All of these things are preventative measures. Okay, so then if the prevention doesn't work, oh, well, my niece has autism. My cousin is bipolar. Alhamdulillah. Illness is not a sin. Why do we in this society, and why do we as Muslims label these people as pariahs? It is not a sin to have a mental illness. These people are not to be shunned from the community. Just like anybody else who has an illness, they simply need treatment. So how do you treat the patient? It's on a case-by-case basis. But again, one of the ways to treat the patient, especially with a mental disorder, is to go back to the Quran and the Sunnah. You have to help them to live a life that is Islamically rich. I took care of my niece who has autism this summer. When she first came to the house, she was kicking me and punching me. By the time she was leaving, she was hugging on me and kissing on me. Because she is a human being that needs nurturing and care and treatment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us things to test us and see what we will do with these. We have to treat ourselves and we have to treat the community. She still has a mind. She's still alive. She can still function and live on this earth, and we do not give up on people until they're in the ground. Because there's always hope for the person and for the next day.